Welcome to Read the Bible with me. I'm Stan Jr. and today we're looking at 2 Samuel chapter 18. If you're new here, go ahead and click subscribe to this channel and turn on your notification bell. And if you are a Bible Club member, first let me stop and say thank you for your $10 donation a month. It helps us send Bibles out to persecuted Christians who can't buy Bibles, and it helps us send missionaries out to the lost around the world. So thank you for that first. If you are a Bible Club member, click like on this video and leave a comment below. I love reading you guys' comments. I'm grateful. Chapter 18, verse 1. Then David mustered the men who were with him and set over them commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds. And David sent out the army, 1/3, under the commander of Joab, and 1/3 under the commander of Abishai, and the son of Zeruiah, Joab's brother, and 1/3 under the commander of Ittai, the Gittite. And the king said to the men, I myself will go out with you. But the men said, You shall not go out, for if we flee, they will not care about us. If half of us die, they will not care about us. But if you are worth 10,000 of us, therefore it is better that you send us help from the city. The king said to them, Whatever seems best to you, I will do. So the king stood at the side of the gate while the army marched out by the hundreds and the thousands. And the king ordered Joab and Abishai and Ittai, Deal gently for my sake with the young man Absalom. And all the people heard when the king gave orders and to all the commanders about Absalom. So the army went out into the field against Israel, and the battle was fought in the forest of Ephraim. And the men of Israel were defeated there by the servants of David, and the loss there was great. On that day, 20,000 men died. The battle spread over the face of the country, and the forest devoured more people that day than the sword. And Absalom happened to meet the servants of David. Absalom was riding on his mule, and the mule went under the thick branches of a great oak, and his head caught fast in the oak, and he was suspended between heaven and earth, while the mule was under him went on. While the mule that was under him went on, and a certain man caught it and told Joab. But, behold, I saw Absalom hanging in an oak. Joab said to the man who told him, What? You saw him? Why then did you not strike him to the ground? I would have been glad to give you 10 pieces of silver and a belt. But the man said to Joab, Even if I felt in my hand the weight of 1,000 pieces of silver, I would not reach out my hand against the king's son. For in our hearing the king commanded you and Abishai and Ittai, for my sake protect the young man Absalom. On the other hand, if I had dealt treacherously against his life, and there is nothing hidden from the king, then you yourself would have stood aloof. Joab said, I will not waste time like this with you. And he took 3 javelins in his hand and thrust them into the heart of Absalom while he was still alive in the oak. And 10 young men, Joab's armor-bearers, surrounded Absalom and struck him and killed him. Then Joab blew the trumpet, and the troops came back from pursuing Israel. For Joab restrained them. And they took Absalom and threw him into a great pit in the forest and raised over him a very great heap of stones. And all Israel fled, everyone to his own home. Now Absalom in his lifetime had taken a set up for himself the pillar, that is the king's valley. For he said, I have no son to keep my name in remembrance. He called the pillar after his own name, and it is called Absalom's monument to this day. Then Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok, said, Let me run and carry news to the king that the Lord has delivered him from the hand of his enemies. And Joab said to him, You are not to carry news today. You may carry news another day, but today you shall not carry any news, because the king's son is dead. And Joab said to the Cushite, Go, tell the king what you have seen. The Cushite bowed before Joab and ran. Then Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok, said again to Joab, Come what may, let me also run after the Cushite. And Joab said, Why will you run, my son, seeing that you will have no reward for the news? Come what may, he said, I will run. So he said to him, Run. Then Ahimaaz ran by the way of the plain and outran the Cushite. Now David was sitting between the two gates, and the watchman went up to the roof of the gate by the wall, and when he lifted up his eyes and looked, he saw a man running alone. The watchman called out and told the king, and the king said, If he is alone, there is news in his mouth. And he drew nearer and nearer, and the watchman saw another man running. And the watchman called to the gate and said, See, another man is running alone. The king said, He also brings news. The watchman said, I think the running of the first is like the running of Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok. And the king said, He is a good man and comes with good news. And Ahimaaz cried out to the king, All is well. And he bowed before the king with his face to the earth and said, Blessed be the Lord your God, who has delivered up the men who raised their hand against my lord the king. And the king said, Is it well with the young man Absalom? Ahimaaz answered, When Joab sent the king's servant, your servant, I saw great commotion, but I did not know what it was. And the king said, Turn aside and stay here. So he stood aside and stood still. And behold, the Cushite came. And the Cushite said, Good news for my lord the king, for the Lord has delivered you this day from the hand of all who rose up against you. The king said to the Cushite, Is it well with your young man, with the young man Absalom? And the Cushite answered, May the enemies of the Lord the king and all who rise up against you for evil be like that young man. And the king was deeply moved and went up to the chamber over the gate and wept. And as he went, he said, O my son Absalom, my son Absalom, would I had died instead of you, O Absalom, my son, my son. And so we see here, there's a picture, a small picture of people that are emotional and excited about the word of the Lord. They've got good news, but they don't have any substance to tell it. Nothing to share. When someone asks them a question about the word, or when someone asks them about God, they have nothing to say. They have no word written on their heart. We can see that this way. And so the Cushite comes and says, No, I've got a word from the Lord. I've got the news from the battlefield. I've got the news from the trial, from the test. I've made it out, and I'm here to tell you that you have victory. That's what we should be able to say to somebody, that I've come from the battlefield, and you can have victory like I have victory. You can have an overcoming lifestyle. You don't have to live defeated. I'm here to tell you, there's good news. Jesus is alive, and he died for you. And he wants your life to be in fellowship with his. Perfect peace, perfect harmony with his. And he wants to live with you forever. We should be able to say that. That was chapter 18 of the book of 2 Samuel. Next time I see you, we'll be reading chapter 19. God bless you. Until next time, peace.